Hi, your local Dragon Lady with a updated Ritual Control deck profile. I've been getting a lot of requests for this, and I have made some spicy changes that I think you're going to enjoy. So let's get this started. For the Incantation Engine, I have 3 Incantation Child Slime. This is the most important card in the deck. If you open with it or search for it, it allows you to get your Incantation Engine going. You reveal this card, you ditch one to the grave, and you can special summon a imp from your deck to the field, and depending which one you summon allows you for which search you get. So I have 3 talismans. You reveal a ritual monster from your hand to summon him, or if he's summoned from the deck, it allows you to search your deck for a ritual monster. 2 candles. You reveal a ritual magic from your hand to summon, or if summoned from the deck, you can search your deck for a ritual magic card. 3 Incantation Bookstone. You reveal a ritual magic from your hand to summon, or if he's summoned from the deck, you can recover a ritual magic from your grave back to your hand, so it's a great recursion. And same sort of thing with the Pencil Plume. You can reveal a ritual monster from your hand to get him out, or if he's summoned from the deck, you can recover a ritual monster from your grave to your hand. Great recursion. So this is the ratio I find works best for me, but feel free to play around with it. There is no perfect ratio. The only downfall is I have 2 candles. Now, if you happen to open a hand with 2 of them in your hand, it's going to be pretty tough. You would need to draw into a bookstone to get that engine started, or your child slime. But the odds of you opening with 2 of these in your hand is pretty uncommon. I've experienced it, but it's pretty rare. So if you can find room to add a 3rd one, you can, but tool around with the whole engine yourself and find out what works best for you. Now, the ritual monsters adds a real control aspect to this deck. So one of the most important ones is the Aphramorph Pain, the Imagination Drake Overlord. Holy moly, if you play any kind of ritual deck that can special summon any ritual monster, incantations, or maybe Drytrons, this guy is essential. This allows you to go first. Once this guy hits the field, your opponent must skip their main phase 1. And the only weird way they can negate that is they were to negate the summoning itself, the activation of the ritual magic card. So even if your opponent were to remove this card after the fact, the first effect still goes through. And the best thing is, as long as he stays on the field, any synchro, fusion, or Xyz monster your opponent special summons are all turned off. They're negated. So this guy has to be removed in order to turn on any of those effects. The boyfriend, Shino Baron Peacock. Once he hits the field, you can select up to 3 monsters your opponent controls and bounce them back to their hand or the extra deck. And this is non-targeting, which is amazing. So if your opponent has monsters that has that kind of protections, like Dragoon, if you're able to bait out all the negates, get him out, and that's it. Dragoon go bye-bye, and I've done this numerous times. So he does what a good boyfriend does. He scares away the bad monsters, and he's a spirit monster. So at the end of the turn, he returns back to you, and you can replace them with these lovely tokens. Now, I made these myself. I keep getting asked, where did I get these? Nope, I made them myself. That is the power of Photoshop and a high-quality printer. The girlfriend, Sharon Baroness Peacock, she does the same sort of thing as the boyfriend. Is she sends up to 3 back row cards, but shovel them back into the deck. And she's also a spirit, so same thing. At the end of the turn, she'll return back to your hand, and you replace her with 2 Shino Bird tokens. 1 Blue Eyes Chaos Max Dragon. I am the Dragon Lady after all. I need my main boy. While I do have a deck built around him, he's actually a lot better as a utility card. Search him out whenever you need him or the situation calls for. He's a 4,000 beat stick. He can't be targeted, can't be destroyed, so he has excellent protection. And plus, if your opponent happens to have a defense position monster, you can just do double piercing. And this works really well in this format. I've played some games that once I searched him out and got him out, he's still a tough guy to get around. You have to specifically get out monsters that either does non-targeting or can beat over him. And you have to use a lot of resources to do that, so he's still a decent card. Odd Eyes Gravity Dragon. This guy is underrated. So good. Once it hits the field, your opponent's back row must return to their hand. And the thing is, you cannot respond to this. You cannot chain. It's kind of like the Imagination Drake Overlord. The only way you can really avoid this if you were to negate the actual ritual magic card that would get him out. And as a added bonus, as long as he stays on the field, your opponent has to pay 500 life points in order to activate a card effect. And one neat thing is, if your opponent's life points is so low that's down to 500 or less, they can't do anything. If you can't pay, you can't play. And this has happened a few times. I had an opponent with a combo heavy deck. Once they got to 500 life points, they couldn't do anything else. So it's uncommon, but man, when it works, it works so well. Cyber Angel Benton. You will not be summoning her. Basically, she is for the tribute summoning for the boyfriend and the girlfriend. If she's used as tribute material for a ritual and sent to the graveyard, you can search your deck for a fairy monster, and I will show you what the targets are. And for the spicy spice, the White Knight of Dogmatica. Man, this guy is so good. Now, you will not be using your extra deck anyway, which doesn't matter because see, when he's there, you can't summon from your extra deck. But with the imps, well, you kind of can't anyway. But once it's on the field, and if your opponent were to activate a card effect, what you can do is you can send a card from your extra deck to the grave, which we have a lot of effects, by the way, to take advantage of, but you can take your opponent's extra deck and you can send one of their cards to the grave. So it's kind of like a mini Zaborg and Mega Monarch. We have a lot of combo heavy decks, so a lot of extra decks are so tight that just about every monster counts. So if you were to send the right monster to the grave, you can derail your opponent's entire strategy. So this guy is amazing. Now, speaking of Benton, it allows you to search your deck for a fairy. So here are our targets. One, Divinator of the Herald, and it's also one of your normal summons. When she's normal summoned, you can send a fairy monster from your extra deck to the grave. And we do have targets for that, which I will get to. Next is Vanity's Ruler, your other normal summon. Once these tributes summoned onto your side of the field, it blocks your opponent from special summoning at all, but you still can. So he's very one-sided. He's a devastating card, and I actually won games because of him. Artifact Lancia. You're not going to summon this guy, but he's a really good hand trap for this format. A lot of decks depend on banishing. So if you search your artifact to your hand to the effect of the Benton, keep it in your hand, and if you notice that your opponent's going to do something tricky with banishing effects, just ditch this, bam, they cannot banish for the rest of the turn. Now for the other normal summons, I have 3 copies of Zaborg the Mega Monarch. I love this play so much. So good. If you tribute summon, normal summon this guy, and basically what happens is he's a level 8, you use the effect to target himself and destroy, and you send 8 monsters from your extra deck to the grave, and so does your opponent. So again, as I mentioned, your extra deck is going to have a lot of grave effects you can take advantage of, but the best thing is if one of the monsters you use as a tribute summon is a light monster, which we have a lot of with incantations, you get to pick which monsters you send from your opponent's extra deck to the grave. So he's practically a win condition. If you drain your opponent's extra deck so dry, they're probably not going to play a whole lot. Not many plays left. So he is amazing. You do have to draw into him. He cannot be searched. But when you do, holy moly, because with the Incantation Engine, you will almost always have 2 free cards on the field to attribute summon this guy. For magic cards, I'm going to start off with the rituals. Incantation Inception 3. This is the most important one that you will have. This allows you to special summon any ritual monster you want, but the tribute materials has to be incantations, and the best part is the levels can equal or exceed, so you don't have to keep track if it's exactly a level 8, level 7, or so forth. And this also has great incursion, so if this is in your graveyard, what you can do is you can send an imp from your field or your hand to the grave, get this back to your hand, and in turn special summon another incantation from your deck to the field. And of course, depending which one you get out, can depend on the search that you get to do. I also have 2 Shino Birds Calling. This is made specifically for the boyfriend and girlfriend. Your Shino Bird, Baroness, and Baron. Like the Inception, the levels can equal or exceed, which is really, really good. But say if you have the boyfriend in your hand and the girlfriend is in the graveyard, you can actually banish the girlfriend for the material, or you can use other materials, including the Benton. That's pretty much why I have this. It's important to use that Benton as the ritual, as the tribute material, so in turn you can get your search to send, get a fairy monster from your deck to your hand. For some added spice, I have 2 copies of Recurring Nightmare. I would like to get 3 copies, but you know what? 2 copies seems to be working for now. And what this does, you can target 2 dark monsters with 0 defense from your graveyard and add them to your hand. So we have quite a few targets for this. The main ones is the Talisman and the Bookstone. They have 0 defense, they're dark. So this is a great way, if you're running low on certain incantations, you can get these guys back into your hand. And the incantation requires you to have a ritual monster in your hand, or the Incantation Bookstone allows you to have a ritual magic card. So this can still keep your engine going. And of course, the Chaos Max Dragon also has 0 defense. So if he happens to be in your graveyard and you want to get him back without the use of the pencil plume, there you go. So you can add any of these 3 back to your hand from the graveyard. So that is really handy. I've done this. This is ridiculous. It just keeps everything going. I have 3 copies of Preparation of Rites. This allows you to search your deck for any level 7 or lower ritual monsters. So quite a few. The main one is the Child Slime, but you can search your Benton, and you can search your Odd Eyes Gravity Dragon with this. And if you have a ritual magic card in your grave, you can bring that back to your hand. 2 pre-Preparation of Rites. This searches for your boyfriend, girlfriend, and the corresponding ritual magic. So your Baron, Baroness, along with the Shino Bird's Calling. So if you want to jumpstart your engine to get out Benton as the ritual material, do bounce cards, the search for your Vanity's Ruler, this is a good card. And for draw power, we have 3 pots of Extravagance. You're not going to summon anything from your extra deck, so this is a free draw 2 cards in my book. Okay, for the extra deck, I did mention that we have a few targets for Divinator of the Herald. So the main ones are 3 copies of Herald of the Arclight. It's a fairy. Once it's sent to the graveyard, you can search your deck for a ritual magic or monster card added to your hand. We also have 3 copies of Elder Entity Entis. When this hits the grave, you can target a card your opponent controls and pop it. Front row, back row, doesn't matter. These are also great targets for your Zaborg the Mega Monarch as well, and for your White Knight Dogmatica. But because of White Knight Dogmatica and the Zaborg, we do have some additional targets. These are only the targets you can use for your Divinator of the Herald. We have 3 copies of Fossil Warrior Skull Knight. Once he's in the graveyard, once per turn, you can banish him, and you can target a monster your opponent controls, and you can destroy it. And a lot of people forget about this. Another underrated one is Wind Pegasus and Enixter. I am so bad at pronouncing that. Enixter. Yes, so once he's in the graveyard, anytime your opponent were to attack or destroy one of your monsters, in return, you banish this from the grave, and you can shuffle that monster into the deck. And everyone, just like the Fossil Knight, people forget it's in your graveyard, and when you pull this off, they're surprised. It's like, wait, you can do that? You sure can. So these are all targets you can send to the grave via your Zaborg, and the top 3 you send via the effect of Divinator of the Herald. Now for the last remaining cards, you're not going to summon, but you might, and I have done it before. IP Mask Arena, you only need 2 non-link monsters. So say if your opponent were to go first and they summon a bunch of tokens to your side of the field to maybe try to limit your playing options, you can use her to take up those tokens. And in turn, of course, you can use her to summon your Nightmare Unicorn. You can bounce a card, or go into the Nightmare Phoenix to destroy a back row. So this almost never happens, but if you have to fill up the last 3 slots, these would be the best ones to go with. For your side deck, it really depends on what your format is at your locals, but I find there are some cards that can fit into any side deck, and with the Ritual Control, there are certain ones that has a huge benefit. The main one is I have 3 copies of the Winged Dragon of Ra Sphere mode. Now, You don't have to use this one. You can replace it with a kaiju, with lava golem, but what I like about this one, it can get rid of 3 problematic monsters, and it's also a normal summon. So if your opponent were to have you in a special summon lockout, this can ignore it. And of course, due to the effect of the boyfriend, once you get him out, you can use the effect to target, well, it's non-targeting, I'm sorry, but to send this back to your hand, and you can recycle it for the next turn. And I've done this too. I've been able to get rid of 3 of my opponent's monsters, get the boyfriend out, return this to my hand, and the next turn my opponent once again got 3 monsters out, and I did it again. So this works for your kaijus and your lava golems as well. Now for back removal, I have a Harpy's Feather Duster, 2 Twin Twisters. This can be anything. You can use Cosmic Cyclone, 3 Twin Twisters, but I find this works out really well. Let's see here. I also have 3 copies of There Can Only Be One as the Floodgate. The reason why this works so well in Ritual Control is all your monsters they're all different types. The incantations, they're all different. They're either spellcasters, they're either pyros. Same thing with your actual ritual monster. Now you do have 3 dragons, but that's okay. You can still search for the one you need the most for that certain situation. I also have 2 copies of Royal Decree. There's still some trap heavy decks out there, and this is a real good response. I would love to, have 3 if I could. And for the 3rd card, I have Necros of Unicorn. I couldn't really find room to main deck him. I prefer the Drake Overlord simply because it has the main phase 1 skipping aspect. But if you don't have the Drake Overlord, this is the best alternative. If I didn't have Necros, I probably would have replaced it with a 3rd Royal Decree, but it depends on who you're playing against. I mean, if your opponent is playing a real Link heavy deck, like Dragon Links for example, this would kill it so quickly. Your opponent would have to get resources out to get rid of this card before they can really go into their Link plays and get their effects. And last but not least, I have 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joy Spring. As for hand traps, I think this is one of the best ones, but if you don't have it, Ghost Spell is a very good alternative, and same thing with Droll and Lockbird. There's a lot of decks that adds from your deck to your hand, so if you droll your opponent, that could probably help win games. I do have some extra cards and other ideas that can be incorporated with this deck. After all, everyone plays in a different format, different play styles, so these are ideas that you can try adding to the deck, replacing in the deck. One good card is Big Rock, a mono Iwata, which is a spirit monster, and he basically plays off the effects of the boyfriend and the girlfriend here. What happens is, if you succeed in activating the boyfriend's effect by bouncing 3 monsters back to the hand, you can special summon a level 4 monster from your spirit monster from your hand while ignoring the conditions. So this will bring out Big Rock and he stays there. He won't return to your hand. It's the same thing with the girlfriend, the peacock. Well, Baroness. Once she shuffles 3 back row cards back to your opponent's deck, you can special summon this guy from your deck, ignoring the conditions, and he stays there. And the thing with, as long as he's there, no one can activate card effects except for spirit monsters. So if you're lucky enough to have Chino Bird calling in your hand, these can return to your hand while he stays there, and you can probably get this guy back out by using her as a tribute material. So it doesn't work every single time, but when it does, it really does pay off. I also have Manju of 10,000 Hands. So Divinitor of the Herald, she is a tough card to get these days, really, really high in demand. So if you can't get her, this is a really good replacement. You normal summon him, and you can search your deck for any ritual magic or monster. So you can't really lose with this guy. For other ritual monsters, Savarius, the Ancient Ascendant, is really good. I had him in earlier builds. He works as a good hand trap. If your opponent were to target any of your monsters with an effect, just ditch him to the grave and that monster is protected. Now, if you were to ritual summon this card, what happens is if your opponent were to special summon a monster or monsters, you can return this guy to your hand and banish a special summon monsters, like if they're pendulum summoning. This guy's a really good response to that. Lord of the Red, he's really good. I mean, I play with him off and on. If your opponent were to activate any card effect, you can destroy a card that your opponent controls. It's once per turn, but he's really, really nifty. Also, the Necros of Head Behair. Oh my god, I'm awful with this guy. But he's really good. Basically, as long as it's in the field, when a monster effect is activated, you can tribute one monster from your hand or the field. You can negate the activation, and you can banish that card. So he's a good control aspect for this deck. For trap cards, you can try using Warning Point. This is such a mean card if you're going first. You set this card, and if your opponent normal or special summons a monster or monsters, you activate this, that monster can't attack, its effects are negated. Also, it cannot be used as link material, fusion, sync, or XC, anything. They cannot use that monster for anything from the extra deck. So if you hit the right monster with this, they gotta do something else to get the monster they want from the extra deck. And also, Drytron Meteor Shower. This is such an interesting card. I think it's better suited as a side deck card, but basically what happens is if you activate this, like if you control a ritual monster and your opponent were to normal special summon a monster or monsters, you can negate the summon and you can shuffle that monster into the deck. So yes, it can be any ritual monster. It does not have, like, it may have Drytron in the card's name, but it does not have to be a Drytron. So any ritual deck, you can use this. And that, my dragons, is my spicy updated deck profile for the ritual control. I hope you enjoy it, and remember to always be a good sport, play the game, not the fame. Bye-bye.